com. Terms and conditions apply. Diane Feinstein, a.k.a. Diane Feinstein, and her ties to China. Her party doesn't care about it. The media do not care about it. Our government doesn't care about it. But as pointed out in The Federalist by Ben Weingarten, who is an outstanding writer, he says in part, remember she had this spy as a driver, for the last 40 years, no politician in America has arguably maintained a deeper, more long-standing, and friendlier relationship with China, the highest levels of its ruling Communist Party, than Dian Feinstein. It dates back to opening the U.S.-Chinese diplomatic relations in 1979. Shortly thereafter, Feinstein, then mayor of San Francisco, established a sister city relationship with Shanghai, one of the earliest and most robust such relationships in U.S.-China history. Soon after, she led a mayoral delegation to China joined by her husband, investor Richard Blum, a trip they took together many times over the ensuing years as the relationship between both Feinsteins and China grew. During the 1980s, as mayor of San Francisco, Feinstein developed a close friendship with Shanghai mayor Jiang Zemin. This substantially enhanced Feinstein's foreign policy profile and created an important linkage to the U.S. government for China's Communist Party. Just as Feinstein rose to a prominent position in foreign affairs and national security in the U.S. Senate, first on the Foreign Relations Committee and later as chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, Jiang rose to the top of Chinese leadership, serving as chairman of the Central Military Commission, General Secretary of the Communist Party, and President of the People's Republic of China. Under Jiang's leadership, the PRC initiated a brutal crackdown against practitioners of Falun Gong, including mass imprisonments, beatings, torture, rape, organ harvesting, and murder, and engaging in alleged human rights atrocities against Tibetans. Feinstein never renounced her friendship with Jiang in spite of these acts. Feinstein and Jiang reportedly visited each other regularly in the 1980s, with Jiang once spending Thanksgiving in San Francisco with Feinstein and her husband. Jiang supposedly danced with Feinstein during one such visit, which surely must have been a propaganda coup for the Communist Party in China, a la Ted Kennedy and the Soviets. In 1986, Feinstein and Jiang designated several corporate entities for fostering commercial relations, one named Shanghai Pacific Partners. Feinstein's husband served as a director. His financial position was relatively small, less than $500,000 on one project, the only such position in China the Feinstein family held when Feinstein entered the Senate in 1992. That project, however, which Blum's firm participated in alongside the PRC state-run Shanghai Investment Trust Corporation, was one of the first joint ventures between San Francisco and Chinese investors, reportedly cited by by Chinese officials as a testament to the friendly business ties between Shanghai and San Francisco that Feinstein had initiated. Subsequently, Blum's investments in the Middle Kingdom mushroomed. In May 1993, Feinstein expressed her strong support on the Senate floor for continued trading with China. Contemporaneously, her husband was seeking to raise up to $150 million from investors, including himself, for a variety of Chinese enterprises. In August 1993, Feinstein and her husband visited Beijing for extensive meetings with Chinese leaders at President Xing's invitation. As the Los Angeles Times reported in a 1994 expose on Feinstein's husband's business ties and the potential conflict of interest they presented, quote, "Such encounters are fondly remembered when deals are clinched back in China. According to American experts in Chinese business practices, they said that Feinstein's consistent support for China's interests cannot help but benefit her husband's efforts to earn profits there." The historical record suggests these American experts were right. Blum successfully raised $160 million for the aforementioned Asia Fund under his Newbridge Capital Investment Company, including investing $1 to $2 million himself. The fund invested in several state-owned and Chinese government-linked businesses. Blum's firm's largest holding at the time as China Investments began to draw scrutiny in 1997 was its stake in Northwest Airlines. The then estimated $300 million position was poised to significantly appreciate in value, as Northwest happened to be the sole airline operator providing nonstop service from the United States to any city in China. When questioned on his China investments, Feinstein's husband, Blum, pledged to donate future profits from the holdings to his nonprofit foundation to help Tibetan refugees, thereby, quote, removing any perception that I in any way, shape, or form benefit from or influence my wife's position on China as a U.S. Senator. But these conflict of interest issues persisted. In January 1995, Feinstein was appointed to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Subsequently, she made several visits to China, accompanied by her husband, where she met with senior government officials. During these trips, the couple was wined and dined. On one such visit in January 1996, Feinstein and Blum enjoyed a meal with President Zheng in one city, the exclusive leadership compound for China's Communist Party, where, according to Feinstein, they ate in Mao Zedong's residence in the room where he died. Feinstein kept up her dogged support for increased trade with China. In May 1996, she penned an editorial in the LA Times calling for the United States to grant most favored nation trading status to China on a permanent basis and get past the annual dance that is proving to be extraordinarily divisive and not at all helpful toward reaching the oft-stated goal, improvement in human relations. While Feinstein maintained her pro-China positions, in March 1997, the senator revealed that the FBI had warned her that the Chinese government might seek to funnel illegal contributions to her campaign fund. Now, she was one of only 6 members of Congress to receive such a warning. The New York Times noted at the time Feinstein had returned 12,000 in 1994 contributions from people with connections to Lippo Bank, an arm of the multi-billion-dollar conglomerate owned by the Riyadi family, with investments and operations throughout Asia. The Riyadis had been friends and supporters of the Clintons, and it goes on. Let's continue. In May 2000, Feinstein lobbied for making permanent normal trading relations with China, a measure that ultimately passed, and helped pave the way for its entrance into the World Trade Organization, which Feinstein also supported. Now, at the time, a spokesperson for Feinstein indicated that her husband had divested of his last holdings in mainland China in 1999, but Blum's stake in another New Bridge Capital Asia fund, which contained investments in China, belied that assertion. Meanwhile, in the years leading to the passage of that legislation, Blum's Newburgh Capital reportedly invested more than $400 million into East Asian businesses, at least $90 million of which was invested in companies whose profits are pegged to the burgeoning mainland China market, according to the companies themselves, and several of which were partly owned or founded by the Chinese government. If nothing else, Blum still stood to profit handsomely from management fees for these portfolios. And it goes on and on and on. I just stopped at 2000. Feinstein. And they put a spy in her car as her driver in San Francisco. Feinstein and Blum, the couple, had made a fortune from their investments in China, from their special treatment, their privileged positions and treatment. They have effectively sold us out. She sits on the Senate Intelligence Committee today. She's a senator. Peter Schweizer writes extensively of the ties that Mitch McConnell's family by marriage has with the Red Chinese Communist Party, the state in China. Elaine Chao's father and her family are among the biggest freight movers and buyers with China. And they make millions and millions of dollars from it. And Schweizer looks at Mitch McConnell's record on the Senate floor of having once spoken out against Red China, now he almost never does. Now, you're going to be learning that there's much, much more of this, again, on this Sunday show. I'm not saying this for that reason, but I can't do that show on the radio. There's just too much. But there is a great deal going on. A great deal. Feinstein's economic positions frequently downplay the PRC's rampant human rights violations. The senator has fashioned herself as a peacemaker, often urging appeasement of the Chinese regime in both apologism for such abuses and urging restraint. These efforts date back to the early 80s. Until that time, participants in San Francisco's Chinese New Year parade displayed the flag of the nationalist Chinese government, which had ruled in exile on Taiwan after 1949. According to the San Francisco Gate, then Mayor Feinstein asked organizers to stop the partisan practice because she wanted to encourage trade with China. She also argued against tying Chinese most favored nation status to human rights improvements. In March 1996, Feinstein sought to ease tensions between China and Taiwan, arranging discussions with high-level Chinese dignitaries on Capitol Hill at China's behest. And here we have Sessions, who recused himself on the Russia matter because he met with a Russian. Has Feinstein ever recused herself from any China matter? During this period, Feinstein took an uncharacteristically aggressive stance towards China's hostile actions, conducting missile tests near Taiwan, presumably in line with the Clinton administration. We view the missile exercises as provocative and unnecessary. She took an arguably harsher line towards then Taiwanese President Lee Teng-hu, stating, "What is really necessary is for the leaders of Taiwan to make a statement in word and in deed that they will adhere to a one-China policy." In other words, that Taiwan will agree to surrender its sovereignty to China and get gobbled up. Let's move on. 2015, just a few years back, Feinstein effectively sought to defend the Communist Party in China from criticism on a purportedly pragmatic basis in fighting legislation from Senator Ted Cruz that would have named the street running in front of the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C., Li Abo Plaza. Ayabo, a Nobel Prize-winning anti-communist writer and human rights activist, had at the time been held in jail for 7 years by the Chinese government for criticizing the regime. When Cruz sought unanimous consent for the bill on the occasion of President Xi Jinping's U.S. visit, Feinstein blocked it. A month later, when Cruz reintroduced the measure, citing a statement co-authored by Feinstein and her Democrat colleague Pat Leahy, calling for his release, Feinstein again blocked it. Finally, in February 2016, the bill cleared the Senate in a unanimous voice vote, though it died in the House amid a veto threat from the Obama administration. Later, Feinstein did co-sponsor a resolution honoring the imprisoned gentleman, freedom fighting in his efforts, shortly after his death in state custody in 2017. I'll be right back.